Hello everyone, welcome back to the Anatomy Lab. Today we're going to be looking at the muscles of the head, face, and neck again, but this time with a focus on the muscles of the neck, meaning that the muscles that are going to be attached to the head down to the neck, as well as down from the neck down to the torso as well. So first of all, let's take a look at this major muscle on the side of the neck. This muscle over here is called the sternocleidomastoid. This muscle is going to be named for its various attachments, the sternum, the clavicle, and the mastoid process. So sternocleido, those two attachments will be down here, more inferiorly, while the mastoid process is going to be up here, where it's going to be attached to the head. Now if you look at this one, you can kind of see the attachments a little bit better. This would be the sternum. This would be the clavicle, and you can see this muscle, the sternocleidomastoid, attached down here to both of those two bones. And then up here, more superiorly, it's going to be attached to the back of the head at the mastoid process of the temporal bone. Now what this muscle is going to be responsible for doing is contralateral rotation of the head, as well as neck flexion. So contralateral rotation means that it is going to be turning the head the opposite direction of the side of the muscle. So if this sternocleidomastoid is on the right side of the neck, it is going to be turning the head to the left. So it pulls the back of the head towards it, and then it is going to pull the head to the left and rotate it to the left. So in the case where both of them contract, though, as in both of the sternocleidomastoids contract, it is going to pull the head downward. It is going to cause the head or the neck to flex and cause your head to bow downward. Now there's one or two more major muscles that we're going to be looking at here. The first of which is one of the most superficial muscles on the back of the neck. This muscle is called the trapezius muscle. This is otherwise known as the traps, but this as a whole, is called the trapezius. Please don't put traps on the quiz. So, trapezius muscle. And this is actually only a portion of the trapezius muscle. You can see much more of it from this model, where you can see that it's attached up here at the top of the neck. It is attached to the middle of the back, and then it is also attached to the lower back. So this is the trapezius muscle as a whole, and it is going to be inserting over here onto the scapula. So when this muscle contracts, it is going to be helping to move the scapula, whether it's going to be helping with elevating the scapula, retracting the scapula, as in pulling it back, or depressing the scapula. It will depend on the fibers that are going to be contracting. So the trapezius muscle, named for its shape, kind of like a trapezoid. So it is going to have fibers that go upwards towards the neck that elevate the scapula, fibers that go backward or posteriorly to the middle back, or the upper back rather, that's going to be helping with retracting the scapula, and then the one that's go to the middle/lower back, that's going to help with depressing the scapula. Now there's one more muscle that you can see here that is a little bit obscured, but at the very least you can see how it's associated with the other muscles. If you have the trapezius muscle here, you have another muscle over here. This muscle over here is going to be called the levator scapulae muscle. It is also going to be attached to the scapula, and although you can't really see it too well, it is going to go down from the neck to the scapula, and it is going to be named for elevating the scapula. So levator scapulae elevates the scapula. Now there's one more set of muscles that we're going to be looking at, but these will be a little bit harder to distinguish. So you need to make sure that you look at some major landmarks as well as other structures to help with orienting yourself. So this, once again, is the neck. And if we were to look at this, we could actually see some of the muscles that we just looked at. So over here, this is the sternocleidomastoid. It is going to be attached to the mastoid process up here. You have the digastric muscle with the anterior and posterior belly, as well as the mylohyoid, this really broad muscle that's going to be down here. Now the muscles that we're going to be focusing on here are called the scalene muscles. So the scalene muscles are going to be muscles that are found like within the neck, and they will be attached to ribs 1 and 2. So depending on which scalene muscle, they'll be attached to either rib 1 and 2, and when you see them by themselves, it's relatively clear, but like we're not always looking at it like isolated. Like we are going to look at these with other tissues there as well. So it may often look like this, so you need to be able to identify them like within a whole body as well. So when you look at this, like if you look carefully, you can see a muscle over here. Like this muscle that's kind of deep, like underneath these blue tubes, underneath this yellow like structure. These fibers, this is actually the anterior scalene. So this is the anterior scalene. It is going to have the phrenic nerve running along the anterior side of it, and posterior to that, it is going to have what's called the subclavian artery, as well as the brachial plexus. These three structures will help with orienting you to where the anterior scalene is. So this would be the anterior scalene with the phrenic nerve, and then with the brachial plexus and the subclavian artery right behind it. Now if we move further posteriorly, right behind the brachial plexus, this is going to be the middle scalene. So from anterior scalene to middle scalene, it is going to have the brachial plexus between them. And then even further, like posteriorly, this is going to be the posterior scalene. So you need to make sure that you look for these landmarks, otherwise it's going to be very hard to identify them. Anterior scalene, and then middle scalene with the brachial plexus and the subclavian artery between them, and then posterior scalene, which is further posterior to the middle. So you can see it on this side as well, although you can't really see the phrenic nerve that well, but you can see the subclavian artery, you can see the brachial plexus, meaning that this would be the anterior scalene, this would be the middle scalene, and then this would be the posterior scalene. Now, you have different models that will allow you to look at this as well. So it's not always going to be the same, but at the very least, you should be able to find a lot of the same landmarks. So this right here is the anterior scalene. This right here is the middle scalene. And how I knew that is by finding the brachial plexus as well as the subclavian artery. But one more thing that would even make me even more confident in finding what I'm looking for, this would be the phrenic nerve running along the anterior scalene. So if this is the brachial plexus and the subclavian artery, anterior scalene, middle scalene, posterior scalene. And you can see them from like the superior view as well. You may need to identify them from here too. Anterior scalene, middle scalene, posterior scalene. So make sure that you're looking at all of the models that are available. Make sure that you can understand like how everything is oriented based off of where they are in the body, how they're related to other structures, maybe even what they do or what their names are. Like that is going to help you a lot with names or with the structures as well. So with that said, that's about it for today. So good job. Like keep up with all the material. Good luck with your studying, and I'll see you all later.